guys? I wanted to make a video about donk betting in No Limit Texas Hold'em. It's been a long time since I've made any content dealing with poker. I took a long time off. Took about 2 years off of playing poker. I just think it's really hard to build up a bankroll just playing with poker, and I inadvertently, uh, I guess, built one without playing. I just by having a job and everything. And now that I'm playing back in the swing of things again, I thought I'd do some educational stuff since I love teaching. And sometimes the grind of poker gets to me. There's a reason why I'm going back to school next year, even though I'm running super hot and I could probably do this forever. But that's neither here nor there. Let's get into dog betting, something that I've been talking about a lot with my friends lately, and how basically it's funny how often you see it at low stakes and how um, it's it's really bad. So let's just get into it. What is a donk bet? A donk bet is a bet by the player who was not the aggressor or did not have the initiative on the previous betting street. Example: pre-flop, player 1 raises to 3 big blinds, player 2 calls. Flop, player player 2 bets 50% of the pot size bet. So usually player 2 is out of position post, maybe in position pre, and he leads uh, for 50% of the pot. It is called a donkey because only donkeys use it. What does a donk uh, bet usually mean? It's usually a capped range. I sometimes don't like to use the term capped because someone's range doesn't necessarily is not always capped. And you could like make the argument that like in certain spots ranges can't be capped. That's kind of like more complicated hand reading, hand analysis that I don't really want to get into for this video. But for all intents and purposes, uh, a donk bet is usually has a capped range, meaning they don't have their strongest hands in their range. Usually don't have their worst hands either, but a lot of times I see that a donk bet is a drawing hand that wants to either take it down there or like quote unquote disguise their range by doing the third thing here by making a blocker bet. Like for example, you have a flush draw and you bet because you're afraid because oh, I'll call 20 bucks, but I'm not calling 50 bucks. It's bad logic. You should use pot odds to figure out if you should continue with the draw, but that's neither here nor there. And um, the worst part about this is that you play face up a lot. Um, when I see a donk bet, I actually love it when I'm in position and I see someone donk bet. All the pressure's off of me. You are basically flipping your hand over. As a player who's played for 10 years, if I ever am in a spot where my cards are pretty much face up and I'm not playing against a fish where it matters, that means I did something wrong. Uh, you're just not. I mean, the whole point of the game is not for them not to know what you have. Um, so we can get into a hand that I played at the Borgata. So I want to first start this hand. Um, you'll kind of see where this is going, but we'll start this hand. We were dealt Jack 8 suited in the blinds. Get a fold, call, call, call. Typical low stakes poker, just limping around. And we decide to call. And the villain who just sat down makes it 20. Everyone folds back to us, and we decide to call. and we take a flop. So the reason why this might be weird to you, I probably wouldn't take this line. You might be saying, Nick, what is with this weird, um, this weird call? And that is because I'm actually not the player with Jack 9. I'm the player over here. Spoiler alert. And the we decide that maybe this board is good for donking. We only have Jack high. We have some weird backdoor straight. We have backdoor. We have front door diamonds. How can we win this pot without betting? So we decided to bet 20 into $60 pot. And villain calls. Turns an 8, so we picked up some equity. Seems like, like a poker plays will scroll down every time there's a new street. We decide we need a bet again. We improved. Bet again, but we decided to size to 25 into, what was it, 90? Yeah, this is a real hand I played. Villain calls. Queen on the river. It's not good for us. We did not improve. We only have top pair medium kicker. So we go ahead check, and he bets 155 into 140. What to do, what to do? Well, let's consider his range on the flop. Okay, so here's the range calculator I pulled up from a random website. I put in a 30% range. This is just super rough, super rough. So we see these pretty wide. If he's using 30%, he's probably actually tighter here because the villain is in the big blind. So if he's tighter, we could put it down to like 25%. And you see his range here. On the flop, on the 5-5-6 flop, when we donk, his range is this is super rough. And then we'll keep in all these aces if there's diamonds here. We'll keep in these for diamonds. Keep these in for diamonds. Tens obviously calls. So maybe these hands. I don't know if ace-7 off is in his range. We'll take out ace-6 off. It's probably not in the range. This is a rough estimate. So when he calls our bet on the flop, his range is this, and it's, as you see, it's basically the same. So part of the reason why I don't like donk betting is because it actually doesn't narrow his range, because he's calling with almost the same amount of hands as he is on the river. I mean, his pre-flop range is almost the same as his post-flop range. So we're putting our money in when we don't have a good hand. We have Jack high. So we're here with ace queen on the big blind, and we have 3 limpers, 4th limper, so we raise it up to 20. Probably want to make it maybe even 22. Probably okay. And we get a call from the fish in seat 1 or seat 2 that he's like an older guy that doesn't really put his money in bad, but he's also kind of takes weak lines kind of player. So he checks to us. This is a clear C bet. Got backdoor diamonds, 2 overs, so we bet 1/3, and he check raises us. With backdoor diamonds and 2 overs, I think that's too tight to fold here, even against our villain. I think sometimes this is an okay fold against super tight villains, but he wasn't that tight. I only played a few hands with him, but it didn't seem like he was super tight. So I call. Turns the 8 of clubs, doesn't really improve, and he goes all in. So I think we just have to fold, sadly, which we do. And the villain shows 7-10 of diamonds with inside straight draw and open-ended flush. I think you guys are seeing the pattern here. And for the last part, I hope you see the pattern that emerged here. We're going back to having the Jack 8. I just under the gun flatting here. I don't know. It could be okay. We don't have to get into that. But anyways, get back, and this time on the flop we check instead of donk betting, and the villain bets 1/3. So we call. Because the reason why we're calling here is because the villain has basically all his hands from the pre-flop, and with a 2 overs and a flush draw, we're gonna just call that. We improve with the 8 again. We check. He bets 60, and we call again. We are pretty much our 8's like good most of the time. I think you can put in a check raise here a lot, but against an unknown villain, um, I don't like the check raise always, especially if he's super super tight. That would be, I mean, he's not an unknown villain, but a lot of players at these stakes won't fold. I don't really want to get into turn and river balancing out check raises. I just want to go into the reason why we're not donking here. River's a queen. Check to him again, hoping to see a cheap showdown, and he bets 135. So we fold, and he has ace queen. So, oops. So you might be thinking, oh, this is just a regular old video about getting people off their hands because you don't want them to quote unquote catch up or fully realize their equity, whatever you want to call it. And no, that's not what the video is about. And like I said, we could get into check raising the turn here and barreling many river cards that maybe non-Broadway rivers, non-Broadway, non-diamond rivers, we're not barreling or something like that. But the point of the video is usually donk betting is bad because it caps your range, and B, it makes it so that you don't balance your checks on the flop, because he could actually have a better hand here, and I could do this all day, giving the villain a different hand, giving the villain and giving him aces and folding to a check raise, river jam, all types of things like that. Um, Different card on the river. There's a reason why I gave him. I did this hand over here, or I gave him the 7-10, because I wanted to reiterate that your range, your what you are playing is your range and not your hand. Um, until you get to showdown. But you're still playing your range against his range, and that's why I can change these cards over and over and over. And the reason why I put the 7-10 of diamonds is because it's basically like the Jack 8 of diamonds that doesn't improve with the 8. And we got him off this hand. But like I said, this is not a video about denying equity by betting. This is a video about why check raising is better than a donk bet, and why you should not have donk bets in your range. So, to reiterate what I was saying before, and why donk bet is mostly bad, is that at the end of the day, it's a very imbalanced play. And everything in poker and life is about balance. Balance, which I could make a probably infinite amount of videos about, which is the entire game, is like when you should not always have bluffs here. You should not always have value there. So that sometimes they need to fold to you and sometimes they need to call you. I can make a video like that in a different time. But remember, this is all about balance. A, a donk bet caps your range, like I said before. It balances your checks so that every time you check, he's not just okay to bet. That you might put in a raise, either for value or for bluffs, which which adds a tool to your arsenal, so you're not just bet and folding on every street. You actually have a check raise. It's kind of like a lower level thing. And then it denies equity when you do check raise, which, like I said, this is not just this is not a video just about denying equity. This is this is actually a video about balance. And and then the last thing that it sort of does is that when you check, it can lower variance when you check call. This last part here. Um, I do lower variance types of plays a lot when I know I have a really big edge in a game because I don't need to, and you should be doing this if you have a large edge in a game. Um, you don't need to lose all your money on a very tight edge spot. For example, if I'm playing Phil Galfond or best player in the world, and I'm in a spot where I'm only 48%, I might push that, or maybe I even have 51% in a spot. I might just put all my money in because he can beat me in the long run. But if I'm like have a huge edge where, like, for example, you have like a 70 to 80% edge over a field, there's no point in putting your money in when you only have when you only have like a 51% card edge. Uh, and so check calling, like I showed in the last in the last part, check calling when I folded to the river bet can is also better a lot of the times than donking, because sometimes you can just even check fold and you lose the minimum instead of you're betting and you're putting money in when you don't want to. The next part is it ever okay to donk bet? So I sort of mentioned this earlier. I think in, like, the 10 years I've been playing, I have a 0% donk bet range on the turn. I have probably like close to a 1% donk bet on the flop and like a 2% on the river. So when do you do it? I do it sometimes on a multi-way, when the hand is multi-way on a wet flop with a nutted hand. For example, um, let's say you have pocket tens, and or let's say you have, it's even worse. You're in the big blind with 7-9 uh, offsuit, and um, it limps to you like four ways, and 7-9 off's not good, so you check, and the flop comes 7-9-8 or 7-9-6. You have top two. Uh, it's okay for you to just donk in there. I don't know if that's really a donk bet, but like I do that a lot to deny equity against the draws. I do it on the river when a villain's range will most likely check back and you want value. For example, maybe you didn't think a check raise was pertinent on the turn, so but when you get to the river, maybe the river improves you so much that and the villain's hand is like really weighted towards pairs and like maybe a two pair, but like you have the nut straight, you have the nut flush, you have the board pairs on the river so that you have a boat or you have a trips, and he's gonna just check back all his low paired hands, maybe a second pair. Sometimes I lead river, and so I'll get value from that, and maybe he puts him in a hard spot so that like maybe he like makes a crying call with second pair, and you have like top pair, top kicker or something like that, or any of the hands I said before, or maybe you lead into him on the river for $300 when normally he would like only like bet 100 and fold to a straight, or to a he would only bet 100 and fold to a raise, so you bet like 200, so you're getting more EV off of it. And then the reverse, this last part, which is the inverse. Oh, I'm sorry. Would be on a river as a bluff when they think your range can only have value. So like it's the inverse. It's sort of like you have a bluff and you lead, and then it's a thinking player that says, okay, he's only leading with value, so that I have to fold. So then you know that can you can profitably donk there as a bluff. Basically, the summary is you shouldn't donk bet uh, um, most of the time, unless you are better than Phil Gaffond. He's just like my hero. He's the greatest poker teacher of all time. But um, yeah, try not to donk bet. Work in your checks, check raises. Stray away from putting in money in when you shouldn't, obviously. But hope this helps. I'm probably gonna make a video in the future about um, getting into more of like check raising ranges on flops and turns. And then I could even like go over like the donk betting on the river and like what kind of sizings you might want to do. But I could get into that more later. And I also kind of just like want to talk about poker and life in general more. I like making videos. So if you have any questions or if you sort of like disagree with part of my take, just message me below because I would love talking about poker, and I'm always open-minded to like any type of play in poker. And maybe donk bet, maybe I should be donk betting more, or maybe I should be you know donk betting less. Like I don't know. So if you have any questions or whatever, just let me know. Peace.